Welcome to The Forum, your modern-day coffee house, where ideas can be birthed, exchanged, and wrestled with. We celebrate questions, conversation, and reason as powerful tools to enlighten hearts and transform minds, shaping a new generation of thinkers, innovators, and pioneers. We're glad you're here, so pull up a chair and let's begin.
Good morning. Hope you're all good. Thank you for all being here this morning. So this week, I'm going to share with you some thoughts on a book I've read about chatter. And actually, it's been quite a nice book to read, and it's been quite a good process in terms of doing talks, because whenever you do a talk, you inevitably get in your head. You've got a lot of little inner voices going on and things telling you this, that, and the third thing. And it can really impact how you function. You can just get really in your head with it all and be quite unfocused with anything else. And it's kind of, that's what chatter is, and that's kind of what I want to talk to you about. And it's a book by a guy called Ethan Kross, who's a neuroscientist and self-talk specialist. And I've found it really beneficial, actually, and I'm trying to today practice what I preach because I'm very nervous and full of chatter. So our inner voice, we all have one. Don't care who you are, whether you think you've got one or not, you have. We've all got one, and we all operate very differently. I've got that up there. In how our inner voice works. And it will vary so much with us all, because we're all different personalities, have got different ways of thinking and coping, but we'll all have that inner narrative that's going on in the background. And apparently, Kross claims that we think 4,000 words a minute. I actually think I might be triple that, but 4,000 words a minute, which, to put it into context, that's the equivalent of the entire book, first book of Harry Potter, in 20 minutes. So that whole book is what you think, words-wise, within 20 minutes. It's crazy. I know this is true for me, for sure, because my mind goes so fast and I'm constantly thinking. We all are. Subconsciously, your mind is always working out, just the basic things like how to put one foot in front of the other, how to breathe, how to move, me moving around. Now, my mind is activating this. But also, I've got this constant chatter going on in the background, like, oh my God, am I waffling? What do people think? Do my arms look big in this T-shirt? That constant background noise and chatter is always going on as well. We might be playing scenarios in our head, also whilst having conversations with people, you can be listening and also very much not listening. And we might be thinking how to respond, or your voice might be telling you, I need to give more eye contact, or I need to sit up straight in an interview. Or when you're relaxing, you may be relaying the day you've just had, or, hashing over memories, or thinking about the next day ahead. It's a constant thing that's going on. And whatever it is, we all have our inner dialogues. And the term chatter, though, is when that inner voice becomes quite dominant and negative self-talk can creep in, your inner critic. The doom spiral of rumination and worry. And we can, if we're not careful, get sucked into this rabbit hole of inner self-destruction. We can be quite cruel to ourselves, which is such a shame when we're with ourselves 24/7. Because the thing is with chatter and your inner voice, it's actually a perfectly normal part of humanity. And in a sensible measure, it's an experience we all have and we all go through. So sometimes it's important to have a voice in your head that might be disagreeing with something and challenging you. That's not always a bad thing. And even the negative chatter can help you in some ways, but it's when it becomes so intense that all you're saying to yourself when you're looking in the mirror is horrible things, or all you're doing when you're trying to make friendships or function in life is, I'm rubbish at my job, or I should have done better at that. If you're constantly speaking to yourself like that, that's where it can be a problem. After all, we will tend to lean into the negative, because actually, if you think about it, there's more of a fallout with negative things and things that happen, because they've got the potential to derail us. So that's why we can sometimes obsess a little more about the negative stuff, because it has a bigger impact. Your routine might be challenged, your comfort, your sense of self. We all have a negative bias, as it's a risk to our security, and we don't like to feel vulnerable. But when it comes oversensitive and we start to really zoom in on our problems, it's hard to see the wood for the trees, isn't it? And that dominant chatter can affect your attention, your ability to focus, and your capacity to take in further information. It's just all here, isn't it? And if left untreated, it can actually really affect your overall health and well-being. Many studies and research show that our mental chatter can affect our physical being, our physical health. We can feel sick, we can get twitchy. The stress levels and chemicals released are absorbed into our bodies and make us unwell. But Kross does quite a lot of intensive research in this, and he shows that we all have the ability to turn our chatter and our inner critic into a coach. And actually, because it's there, it's not going anywhere, your inner voice, you can't avoid it. So let's try and change the narrative and twist things round a bit and make it, something that's more beneficial for us. Because our most precious and treasured relationship needs to be the one you have with yourself and your inner voice. That's what drives our life experiences and how we cope. So it's really quite vital to your joy and health to learn how to manage that and to be our own best friend, be our own champion, and be encouraging. Instead of, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done that, I'm an idiot, I'm stupid. We're very good at brainstorming worst case scenarios, aren't we? And it's just not helpful. So, why do we have an inner voice? What's its purpose? And according to Kross, its main functions are 1, memorizing. So your inner voice is what helps you memorize. Rewind to before iPhones. How did you remember a phone number? You had to memorize it, didn't you? You had to memorize someone's address. You had to remember how to get somewhere. So that part of our brain is what helps us retain that information in the short term. Our voice in our head helps us remember the shopping list when you got a nip to Little Asda. That mental little list you have, that's what that part of your mind does. Exams and tests, when you're constantly going over and repeating information, you're memorizing information for that short-term gain. And I bet some of you in here can still remember phone numbers from when you were a kid. I bet you can. Maybe if you're not over 60. Second, simulate and plan. We prepare, we simulate, we rehearse. Me with this talk, I've been filled with information all week, and I've had to memorize stuff so I can then prep and plan and rehearse for this. I've used my inner voice to help articulate what I'm going to say. So right now when I was typing these notes, that's not right now, that was right now yesterday when I was writing it. Anyone that would come into the office could just think I'm just quietly typing away. But my inner voice is going, and it's telling me what to write. It's telling my fingers what to do. It's telling me it's my narrative and my story. It's going nuts. It's controlling the narrative in order to help me. So that's another part of why you have it. And thirdly, to control and motivate. So I was at a workout on Friday morning. I go to an early morning workout. And I noticed my inner chatter. And it started with, it's a cardio class that I kind of really resent, but I know I need to go to it. And it started as, right, come on, Claire, you can do this. And this is all just going on in my head. I'm stood there perfectly normally, and no one can see what's going on inside. And I'm like, come on, right, let's do this. And as you start to go on, other things start to creep in, like, oh, God, I'm getting tired. My legs are hurting. Be careful of your dodgy foot. Don't do the lunge like that. Make sure you do it right. Oh, this is hard. I'm struggling. And what I found, that as I was doing that, I started to slow down. And actually, my motivation was dwindling because I was starting to let that negative chatter come in. And I was starting to really feel the effects of the workout. And I immediately noticed that. So what I started doing, because I'd been thinking about this week, was thinking, right, why don't I try and change that narrative a bit? So I was like, Claire, you can do this. Come on, you can do 10 more reps. You've got this. In half an hour, you can have a cup of tea and you can feel really smug about yourself. Keep going. And actually, that's what helped motivate me. So I was my own cheerleader. I was motivating myself and controlling that situation and outcome. You can hear it even in just that example. My inner voice was really determining how I was showing up. And then finally, number 4, it helps us make sense of our messy world. The rejections you might have faced, the arguments you have, the anxieties you have, the curveballs that come at you, being blindsided. Your inner voice is what helps try to make sense of these things. It's where you can analyze. It helps us find meaning and understanding. It rationalizes things. And it creates a story to help us shape our sense of self. So that's another really important part of our inner voice. So when you see those things, you think it's quite important then to make sure that what is feeding into those things is something that's going to be beneficial, because if all we're doing with those things is being super negative, that's quite dangerous territory when you think about it and how you then show up in life. It's a really remarkable tool that we have. It's remarkable when you think about it, that we have this at our disposal. And it's a really important part of how we function. So it's super important to make sure we're using it wisely and not getting into that self-talk when we're looping around and around the same issues and we're spiraling. And so when that happens, it turns into chatter. We say things to ourselves as well that we probably wouldn't say out loud. There's probably a lot of stuff that goes on in our head that we wouldn't share with other people. Sometimes maybe the way we think or talk to ourselves. We ruminate on it. And we go over these things when we're having conversations or on our own. We struggle to concentrate. And actually admitting what that is can be challenging because we don't really want to share that. And that actually, though, just highlights even more how impactful that is. That you're silent, you're keeping that silent little demons in your head. So there's 3 forms of negative chatter. So the first is rumination. And rumination is when we go over and over and over the past. It's like a past-related thing. And we turn it over in our minds. The implications to something, the consequences we went through. What if I had done that instead? What if I hadn't done that? What if I didn't say that? Replaying arguments and conversations and situations, hoping for a different outcome than the way you've got. How many of you drive to work and have an argument with someone in your head or go over something again? That's rumination, when you constantly keep kind of letting it bubble up and carry on. It might be that you made a mistake in a friendship or relationship, or maybe you made a bad financial decision and you're facing the repercussions. And we dwell and ruminate. It's worrying, it's difficult. Which leads me on to number 2, worry. Anxiety, that when we kind of get stuck in those things, that's more a future-based thing. Sometimes we're worried about something that's not even happened or might never happen. Like that argument you might be playing over in your head, it might be one that you're preparing to have because you think this might happen or that might happen, and you're almost trying to self-protect yourself. And that worry, you can get stuck in your thoughts and concerns about what may or may not even happen. Sometimes that's not helpful. And then finally, the saddest one, I think, is actually when you self-berate yourself, your biggest inner critic, idiot, worthless, you look fat in that. You call yourself names, you criticize yourself, you feel down. It's not nice. That's what we do when we chatter. And all it is criticizing and looping this information round and around, zooming in on the issue. It's all you can see sometimes. But the key is how to change that chatter into something better that will help coach us. And that's what I'm going to talk about next. I'm going to talk about the tools that are available to us to help minimize that chatter. But for now, I think we'll just take a bit of time for some discussion. And I get that we're not all going to share what our chatter is because, like I said, most of us don't want to. But let's think about maybe talking about where our chatter might be rooted. Is there an area in your life that you feel like your chatter is probably triggered from the most? Is it when you're at family events maybe, or if you're your work situations, you find that's where your chatter comes from a lot, or maybe from when you're with other people? Maybe have a think about that and talk as well, if you want to, just about what I've brought. And we'll have about, what are we on? I think we can manage 10 minutes. My second part's quite long, won't lie. Right, okay, I'll come back in 10 minutes. So a lot of the book, Chatter, Ethan Kross talks about various different techniques that help ease chatter and helps make your inner voice a bit more helpful resource for ourselves. Because there are ways to contain chatter and gain a different perspective. I mean, it's never going anywhere. Your inner voice isn't going anywhere, so you might as well try and work with the thing and be a better influence. So what Kross has done in his book, which I thought was really, really clever, is he's created a toolkit, a list of tools that can help quieten down your chatter and help you focus. But like any toolkit, not all the tools will be relevant every time you need it. And what works for you in one situation may not work for you in another. My husband James is a joiner. He has a van full of tools, but he doesn't need them for every job. But he'll take them with him because whilst he doesn't need them all the time, he needs specific tools to help with specific tasks. Well, it's the same with mind tools. And the beauty of this kit list is that you have lots of different options available to work with and to try. And what a great way to have a handle on your mind and your inner voice by having a variety of things you can try. So I'm going to go through the list of what he talks about. The main focus of the toolkit is about zooming out. So in part one, I said how with your chatter, you're very zoomed in. Now, the thing with these tools is what they do is they help you zoom out. Because what's happening when we tune into something and we zoom in, we lose our perspective. And all you see is the issue. And all you can feel is the emotions from it. You know what it's like when you're trying to read a book or concentrate on something, on a task, following an argument. For example, if you have an argument with your partner and then you're trying to read a book or watch something or do something, it's like, all you can see is that. You can't not think about it. So many of the tools listed today are ways of helping take your attention away from the problem and give you a wider point of view. Some of them you may think, yeah, and others you may think, nah. So, ways to do this can be distant self-talk. So when I becomes you, use your own name to ground yourself, like I did in my workout. I went from going, I can't do this, to Claire, come on, Claire, you've got this. There's a change in how you sort of start talking to yourself. You talk to yourself in second person. Claire, just stop. Just calm down. Go to bed. Relax. You can do this. It changes from, I'm scared. I'm not sure what to do. I'm hurting. I can't cope. That immersive self-talk where you can't get out of your head. Instead, let your inner voice put it into perspective. Is this life and death? Ask yourself that question. It helps you look at yourself from a different angle, a different camera angle, if you like. You then start to engage in a more supportive and motivating way, rather than getting stuck in a bit of a lonely place with it all. And you become your own friend. Which leads me to point 2. Imagine you were advising a friend. If your friend was going through a similar thing, how would you help them? Would you berate them and call them stupid and ugly? No, you would be constructive and supportive. So do the same with yourself. What advice would you give someone else in that situation? Try taking that and working that on you. 3, broaden your perspective. As I said with the zooming out, when you change your view, it's easier to see things for what they are and help manage the chatter and self-doubt. Ask yourself, am I seeing this right? If so, what can I do? How can I address this? Use the part of your inner voice that's there to help you make sense of things. Think about the experience you're worrying about. How does it compare, for example, to other challenges you may have faced and gone through? Sometimes having that perspective can help you put it into a context and offer a reassurance. It's like being a fly on the wall of your own story. As you picture the negative experience in your mind, try distance yourself and change the view. It'll help you detach a little bit more emotionally and reinterpret the event. Zooming out until the image becomes so small, it can help it feel more manageable. This might work quite well for when you're ruminating on a past event. If you make that picture that you're memorizing in your head smaller and smaller and smaller, it feels less powerful and imposing. And you can see things better and more clearly. And it kind of helps it take you out of that little echo chamber you can get stuck into a bit. Which leads me on to next. 4, reframe your experience as a challenge. We tend to lean into the negativity. So when something feels like a threat, when you feel like something's threatening you, it can really trigger your chatter. But maybe look at how you've managed other situations and how you have survived adversity before. If you see it as a challenge to face and overcome, what you're dealing with changes a bit. We shift the focus from a threat to a challenge, and it becomes more constructive and can help you stop catastrophizing. Your focus changes from being a victim to being a challenger. So sometimes you can feel like this at work, maybe, where you feel like if you feel like someone's treading on your toes or on your turf a bit, you can start, if you're not careful and see them as a threat, you can start making yourself smaller and just feel a bit sorry for yourself. But if you start to rise to the occasion and go, actually, I've got something to offer here, I'm going to work through and prove myself, that's more of a challenge, and you hit it differently and you come at it from a slightly different angle and perspective. You step up and you show up in a different way. Reinterpret your body's chatter response. This was a great one for me this morning. Sweaty palms. You're twitchy, you're nervous, you're anxious, you've got a faster heart rate. I was nervous about doing the talk, anxious feelings in your stomach. It's just your body's stress response saying that there's something that needs dealing with. It's saying that something's coming. And they're there actually to help you perform under high stressful situations sometimes. Nerves, for example, before going on the stage. A shortness of breath when you need to have a difficult conversation. This is your body's way of helping you respond to a challenge. So don't let it sabotage you. Just let it show you that something's going on here that maybe I need to look at and how I'm going to focus and readdress that. Take some deep breaths. Pause. Respond. Sometimes in the midst of challenge and uncomfortableness, you have to walk through it in a very physical way. Physical activity can really help with this too. I remember Joel saying a few times before he comes on stage, he feels like he should go for a run or do a workout or something because you've got so much pent-up energy, your adrenaline's going. Go for a walk, a workout, lift some weights, meditate. Take that physical energy and work it out of your body. I actually find this a really helpful tool because I suffer quite a lot with quite a lot of anxiety on a morning, which is why I like to do early morning workouts, because I find that I can thrash it out through a workout. And sometimes, even at work, that can be quite a nice distraction when you've just got something else to focus on and your physical being is just doing something else. It can help manage that physical energy that you've got building up. 6. Normalise your experience. I love this one. When we share our issues and problems, we tend to find, more often than not, others who can relate to what we're going through, as they've lived that experience too. So this communication and sharing can really help you see that you're not a freak and you're not abnormal, but other people have actually walked that journey too, or struggle with similar things. Sharing these things sometimes can help, you feel a bit more normal. And normalizing your situation, can it help you feel less alone, less outcast, and see it as just part of the human experience? Another goodie. Engage in mental time travel. Another way to gain perspective is fast forward 10 years, will this still matter then? Will this matter tomorrow? Will this matter next week? Is it just a short-term thing I have to go through? Do I really need to be giving it this impact that I'm giving it? Does it need to have that magnitude? Remind yourself that one day you will look back and find it all less upsetting, because you can look and see how you've gone through other things and that you've got through that and how this might help you grow. It's quite a tricky one, but sometimes putting that perspective on it and going, hang on, does this really need to have that focus? And, it might actually help you grow. And once you know that, it might not sting so bad if it doesn't matter as much. Sometimes with my talks, I think, by Sunday afternoon, I'll be sat at home and it'll be fine. One that a lot of people like, writing expressively, number 8. So a lot of people swear by journaling. For some, this is a really effective way of getting the chatter out of your head. And what journaling is when you physically are writing something down and all that stuff that's in your head. I know a lot of people do it before they go to bed or first thing on the morning. All that mental chatter, they just forget about grammar and spelling. You just write it all out in a book and it's done, it's on the page and it's out your head. A lot of people find that really helpful. Maybe if you think that's one you could try, spend 20 minutes a day letting it all out. Verbally offloading and focusing your chatter as a narrator can help you see it differently, and it helps you language what it is, your experience, because sometimes the chatter is just so subconsciously going on that it can just be garbage. So sometimes getting it out on the paper can help you kind of make sense of it and language it and give it a narration. Another one that's a goodie. Oh, I'm up there already. Adopt a third-party perspective and a chatter advisor. Be your own mediator. Play devil's advocate. After a negative interaction, can you try see it from a different angle maybe? Or see where they were coming from now the dust has settled a bit? Talk and connect with trusted friends. That's actually a really great way to dim chatter, because getting another person's view can help you look at things differently. Sunday mornings at the forum could be a great opportunity for that. Connecting with others not only helps you normalise, but it also helps create connections and different points of view that you may not have considered. But when you're having a chat with a friend, try not to allow co-rumination. This is where we can just share an offence and our friend is a sounding board to fuel the negative talk and negative emotions. We all know what it's like when we need a good vent to a friend. And that's okay. Sometimes you need that. But you can wind each other up if you're not careful. And you just start getting in this little cycle of co-rumination. I can't believe he did that. What a knob. All that. We can get a bit like that if we're not careful. And it's good to connect and it's good to validate someone's feelings, but it's also good to offer some practical solutions. Active listening with empathy, but an influence. Trying not to dish out unsolicited advice as well, but helping with another perspective. Maybe something a bit more like this. So you've been through this before. I don't know, maybe you could look at how you managed that then. Or, this seems to come round a lot. Have you thought about trying this? It kind of helps give a mental cognitive tool to help with the chatter, rather than just both combining the chatter. And actually, think about those who surround you. Once you've felt validated, do they actually help guide you to practical solutions? Or do they just revive the upsetting experience? Because one type keeps you immersed in it, and the other helps you distance. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to distance. So it's good to find people who can help you do that a bit. By all means, have your venti friends. But try and find those that can help you pull you out a little bit as well. So this one, the next one, the placebo effect. So I've reworded this one, because in the book it's actually called Superstitions and Lucky Charms. And I thought, I don't know how to go there with this one. But a couple of months back, I don't remember, Danny did a talk on magic at play. And he explored the ideas and beliefs that we can have, so superstitions, maybe beliefs and things that we hold to, that can actually aid us and we can find a comfort in. So some people can find a comfort in being a bit superstitious or having a lucky charm. Might have your lucky trousers that you like to wear for a special job interview or something. You know, is there actually any harm in those? I don't know. One for you to think about. Something that brings you comfort. It's called, I think, the placebo effect, which is where we create our own placebo, which is basically things that don't directly fix the problem, but help you feel better just because we believe they do. They can help us stay calm, feel a bit more in control, maybe lift your mood, maybe wearing a lucky shirt, lighting a candle, cuddling a soft toy, using a calming app, having salt lamps in your house. My little girl Sophie at bedtime she's got a dream wisher, and we have to blow away the dreams before she goes to sleep because in her head it makes her feel like she's going to have a nice sleep. Is that doing it? Probably not, but it's making her feel a bit more calm and relaxed. But it is important to say here that it's important to recognize that these things are placebos, because that helps you manage your expectation a little bit. Because if she does go to bed thinking that's going to work, get rid of her bad dreams, and she has a bad dream, you know, you then got that dilemma to deal with. So it's good to know sometimes that these things are just a comfort, maybe. You know, harmful things that bring down our chatter and help you relax. But it's not essential for your survival. And as long as you're not deceiving yourself, it can probably be more helpful than harmful. Kross writes in his book, "We would be mistaken to write off people who cherish charmed objects as misguided. Scientifically speaking, it's quite rational. Study after study demonstrates that simply believing that a placebo, a charmed object, healing presence, or a special environment is going to make us feel better actually does." And one thing he talks about in his book is the power of belief. We were talking about this a little bit on our table. You know, it might be a religious belief that you have, or a belief in a structure or something that gives you some sort of support. I mean, and that's something we've covered many times here at Q over the years, haven't we, about the belief in things. And it's the belief isn't necessarily harmful. It can be a really beautiful thing. But it's just important not to let it to become a dogma or something that you think everyone has to think, or an expectation or a judgment. Once it starts hitting that, that's where it becomes problematic. Let it be a beautiful expression of who you are and not a tool for judgment of others, but more importantly, of yourself. These things are meant to help us, not harm us. Number 11, rituals. We can actually adopt many rituals in life to help us dull out our chatter and cope with life. You know, we have birthday parties every year to celebrate, don't we? When a person dies, we have funerals. We have these rituals that we do that help bring closure in grief. We might pray. We might meditate. Might be smaller things like go on a daily walk. We have our routines like drinking the same tea every morning, saying good night in a certain way every night. You know, rituals can help us feel in control, and they can help us feel like we're meeting goals. We can use them to feel calm, focused, connected. A bit like with the placebo. It may not do anything magical, but it can help you feel more in control, and it helps diminish chatter. They can take on a greater meaning because they help us go beyond our own concerns. And these things help us direct our attention away from what's bothering us and provide us with a sense of order. Sometimes a bit of routine when you're feeling like a bit out of control can help you, because they can help you feel more connected to what's important with your values and that emotional need in you. I think this one is my favourite. Be immersed in awe. I've got a quote. When you are in the presence of something vast and indescribable, it's hard to maintain the view that you and the voice in your head are the centre of your world. When I had my first child, I was given a piece of advice that was really helpful, and it really resonated. And it was this: when things get difficult, go outside, go for a walk. Or is the wonder we feel when we encounter something powerful that we can't easily explain. And being in nature, and I really want to talk about this sometime, can have a massive impact on your sense of self and the dimming of our inner chatter. The vastness, the magnitude of a beautiful view, or a lovely walk, or the fresh air on your face. It can be really healing. Like trees and grass can act like mental vitamins. In the 1970s, psychologists Stephen and Rachel Kaplan created a study around this called restoration theory. And the fundamental thoughts behind this were that the impact that involuntary attention onto something, like, for example, going outside, like a piece of beautiful music, for example, a performance, being in the magnitude of a woodland, the beautiful view, the feel of the warm sun on your face, and how the impact of these can have on your inner well-being. Your attention has been gently reeled in by a process that they called soft fascination. I loved that. When something just takes your attention because you're so absorbed in it. I mean, some of you might have been watching the Glastonbury shows these weekends. There's been some gigs that people have just found absolutely mind-blowing because they felt like a beautiful energy that came off it. Like when you go to a big concert or something, you can feel yourself really immersed in that experience. It can be quite wonderful. And when you put yourself in a situation of awe, you can feel absorbed by that environment, moved by the effects of the music, lost in the story of a movie, immersed in the grand scale of natural surroundings, the feeling of being at a concert, the intense emotion of your baby's first steps. It might be something like that, when that feeling you have when something wonderful happens in your life, or a beautiful monumental moment. Something shifts in you and you shrink. And so do your problems, and relief can follow. On Friday night, I went to see a film called The Salt Path, which is based on the books written by a lady called Raina Wynn. There's a 3-book series, and the film's on the first book called The Salt Path, which I've read, and I thought it was brilliant. And it's very much about how nature can heal, and how these people had gone through such an awful situation that they ended up walking the South Coast Path. And within that experience, her husband, who'd been diagnosed with a degenerative disease, started to heal. He started to feel better because mentally he was just out of that chatter, and he was in this massive surroundings that just brought him, some energy that just filled him with awe and wonder and helped him heal. It's a really fascinating story if anyone ever wants to read it. So, just quickly moving on. I'll skip through these ones a bit quicker. Other tools that might help. Affectionate touch. We all know how good a hug can feel. If you're a hugger, if you're not a hugger, it's just not yours. A nice squeeze of the arm. Consented, of course, can help make the world a better place. It can make such a difference, can't it? And it's such a simple but effective tool. Another one which I've added, this isn't Kross, this is me, which is humour. From a personal perspective, I find humour really helpful. And when I was going particularly through a difficult time when my brother was unwell, that's what got us through a lot of it, was humour, was just detaching from that awfulness and just having a bit of a laugh sometimes. Because when you're so intense in everything all the time, it can just feel a lot. So sometimes having a laugh can really lift you out of that space. I remember when me and James were going through a tricky time as well, and he'd come home from dropping his daughters off, which he found quite hard. I'd put something funny on when he got in that had just helped lift us a bit and kind of change that energy and shift that. And I think that can really help with distancing. And then finally, ordering your environment. Stacey Solomon, Sort Your Life Out, perfect example. When people have been through tragedy or trauma, sometimes it can really change the trajectory of your life, and you tend to hoard things and go within, and you can get so zoomed in that your space can get quite cluttered and messy when you're feeling quite overwhelmed. So decluttering and tidying your space can really help with overwhelm. Marie Kondo, in her best-selling book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, she encourages us to only keep things that bring us joy. A strategy for influencing how we feel by ordering our environment. A cleaner space can help you feel calmer and reduce your stress. and it can also give you a sense of control. So that might be a good one. But I mean, I could go on. Don't worry, I'm not going to. I could go on. Another one I thought that I haven't put on here is singing. Singing's meant to be really good to help you declutter and your mind and detach yourself and distance. That's meant to be a really good tool as well. And all these tools are designed to help us find a different perspective and help us reframe our inner narrative. And adopting these can really help you shift that belief, because we talked about the power of belief. Belief can really, really be such an important part of how you operate and think. It holds a lot of power. And it's just like when I talked about the let them theory. This stuff just stops you in your tracks a little bit and prevents the spiral into negative thinking. These are simply tools to help you distance so you can start to manage things a bit better. So now we're going to take a bit more time to discuss what's been said. And I'd like you to, I'll put the tools up, but I'll put these questions up first. And I'd like you to maybe think about, are there any tools that we've talked about that you might feel you already use? Have they been helpful or not? How and why? What tools have you not thought about that you feel that you might find useful and you might try? And is there anything you may want to try this week, maybe, if you're going through a chatter experience at the moment? And are there any tools that haven't been mentioned that you think might help, that you might have used, that you could share with the table? And we'll take probably about 8 minutes, and then we'll close the morning. Thank you. So I'm just going to wrap up, but obviously we've got till 12 if you want to carry on the conversation. But I think in conclusion, I'm going to keep this very brief, that I think we need to give thanks to our inner voice, because our inner voice is quite an incredible thing. We're able to hold on to so much information in our minds. We can reflect on decisions, remember, reminisce on the past, memorize, have goals, ambitions. We can hold values. We find meaning. It helps us discover new ideas. It helps us change our perspective. And whilst always continually working out our narrative and being able to adapt and change who we are. You actually say it like that. It's a pretty amazing thing that we've got going on in our head. It's really quite incredible what our mind can do, all while still executing daily tasks. The amount of thinking you can do while driving. We're remarkable beings, and our minds are a phenomenal tool in helping us live successfully, be it through positive and negative experiences. Walking through our pains, your mind can help you with that. Our trials and the joys we face, it's all a wonderful, paradoxical experience. And if we play it right, we can be our own best friend and be our biggest cheerleader and allow our inner voice to no longer be our biggest critic, but our greatest coach that guides us and helps us heal. So I really hope you've enjoyed this morning, and I hope you've found some use in these tools that you might want to work out in your own life. Thank you for being here, and we'll now take another half an hour. The cafe will be open, and we'll be closing at 12. Thanks very much.